So, the first part was all about Bardock getting the power we all wanted, but what does he do now? Hey folks, MasakoX here. This tale is something that a lot of you out there think about a lot, given what we have in terms of side stories and whatnot, especially with the video games being a thing. But what are the real logistics, really? How could we make this work in a manner which is in keeping with the entire lore of the actual show? Yes, I know, I did something similar with Bardock being a de facto leader to Saiyans in this What If here, what if Bardock convinced the Saiyans, but this one here, the one I'm about to talk about today, is more grounded in what actually happened had things gone slightly differently. Today, we either round up or carry on what might happen if Bardock had done the deed and had managed to stop Frieza in his tracks before we even understood that Namek was a thing. I mean, there'd be no chance of them going there now. What will happen with Frieza, quite frankly? So, what did we establish in the last part? Well, in said part, we had basically modified the overall premise, but just a little bit, but it was enough. In the beginnings, Bardock's posse had taken his future ramblings on Kanassa a little more seriously. In fact, they actually heard it, and what Bardock saw in his first visions was also different. In them, he saw his crew pass at the hands of Dodoria on Planet Meat, a sneak attack, and as a result, his crew were able to anticipate the lackey of Frieza getting the jump on them, and better yet, be able to tell the other Saiyans about the impending doom that was about to befall them. This time around, unlike witnessing a crazy Bardock with battle damage just going into a canteen and just shouting at the top of his lungs, they were hearing it from a more composed Toma. That was much more likely to win favour with a much more hedonistic Saiyan contingent. When Bardock awoke, he found out that his crew had been busy, they had heeded his warnings, and together, they stopped Dodoria and ultimately was able to whomp Frieza right out of the gate. How do you ask? Well, okay. Simply put, Frieza was at his most arrogant at this time of the story, as well as being petulant. That and he was quite young. He had never expected any sort of power could be enough to eliminate him or even give him any trouble. So, he had no sudden answer to this surprise resurgence and basically his death ball coming back to bite him on the bum. He ultimately paid the price for it. Let's see what happens, and what would most likely happen given that Frieza had bitten the dust. And King Cold, well, he wouldn't take this lying down, let's just say that. In the depths of Frieza Planet 1, news had spread that Frieza had fallen. But to what? That was not common knowledge. Yet. King Cold preferred it that way. He had orchestrated the narrative on his now reacquired empire, having only just given it to his son a mere few years ago. He would choose to reveal the identity of his son's untimely end, and who did it, he would reveal it to everybody on his terms. In a galaxy-wide broadcast, something of a rarity for the authoritarian monarch that was King Cold, he addressed his subjects like they were equals. And this was something he had to stomach. He had to steel himself to do something like this, seeing as he loved to look down on everybody else, him being a superior being and all.
My subjects, today it is with a heavy heart that I must inform you that my dear son, your Lord Frieza, has been slain.
In his mind, he could sense the galaxy sparking with astonishment, surprise, and uncertainty. It gave him an internal rush to feel that his words carried that much weight across the depths of space, so far across the stars. He loved this feeling, and had oh so missed it, but still, he had a speech to carry out, and so he resumed. Little did he know that Saiyans were watching this broadcast as well, or maybe he did know.
My son was a very effective ruler, a remarkable talent, and something I couldn't be any more proud of. He was destined for glory, and ready to take this empire into a wonderful new age of prosperity and innovation. But all of that was taken from us by Saiyans. No good Rotten monkeys.
Another pause. Again, he could feel the stars simmering with intrigue and mutterings about these Saiyans. Now, Saiyans weren't all that popular already, given that they were the most common underlings of the Empire, and they had a reputation before their association with Frieza and King Cold. They were barbaric, more so than the average Frieza soldier.
Saiyans have indeed played a part in my organization for many years now, and up until today, they had been most useful in their own special way. But no more. Effective immediately, all Saiyan tenders and connections are to be terminated. If any world or civilization is caught fraternizing with Planet Vegeta and its inhabitants in any way, shape, or form, they shall suffer a most gruesome end. And if there are any rogue Saiyans out there that refuse to heed my son's order prior to his demise, well, I would suggest you run. All Saiyans are fair game. Message ends.
The communication stops, and King Cold tends to a nearby memorial for his son. Now, you may think that he actually cared for his son, but this was all an act. As he stood by the simple tribute to Frieza, he was seething internally.
You utter fool. How could you let such simple creatures get the better of you? You have failed me, and you have paid the ultimate price for it. I will fix this mess that you made, but know this, wherever you are, you have disappointed me.
He turns away without another look back and heads to his throne room to prepare for the next stage of his plan.
Bring me the prince. I wish to have a word with him.
The televisual screens of Planet Vegeta had been hijacked with this message, almost as if King Cold was talking directly to them and them alone, the entire galaxy an afterthought. In one fell swoop, they had been isolated amongst the entire Empire. Their brethren, which had ignored Frieza's orders, effectively like lambs to the slaughter. What really got to the Saiyan elites was that included probably Saiyan infants as well. All those pods which had been sent out at the last minute into the realms of space. Easy pickings. Their legacy left in doubt. Those poor babes. Bardock was also thinking about his boys. Raditz, Kakarot. Did they stand a chance out there? With targets on their backs through no fault of their own? He had no idea about that, but all he did know was that just because they defeated Frieza, it didn't mean that the Empire would collapse just because of it. A pain rushed through his chest. He was being carted to the medical center, having fallen to the ground after that very frightful and almighty blast that he had conjured up. Everybody was looking at him differently now. They weren't looking upon an upstart mid-class Saiyan. They were staring at the legendary Super Saiyan. They carefully lifted him up into the medical pod. Before he entered it fully though, he caught eyes with one of the people who were helping him inside the capsule. Toma. He spotted that his friend, although heavily beaten up, had survived the battle. I'm here, friend. Thank you. Now rest. We've got a lot ahead of us. And so, they left him to heal up. For the time being, Toma and Bardock's elite squadron became the central focus of the surviving Saiyans, the ones with the most information. All four of them were heralded for their efforts during the battle, and prior to that venture, even the more elite Saiyans were willing to bend their beliefs a little bit and accept weaker Saiyans being in charge. For now, Toma, having been full of doubt up until recently, felt very different. He felt like he was unstoppable, having cheated death and seen his best friend become a legend. They needed to get Bardock back to health and ready to help in case more things came about. But the worst thing about all of this is that nothing happened. For weeks, Planet Vegeta remained utterly silent. No Cold Force vessels traversed the skies of Planet Vegeta. It was as if the entire planet and them had been cut off. Now normally, okay, you would think that this might have actually been a blessing, the best thing that could have happened. But all this did was make the remaining monkeys even more afraid than they were. It was unlike Cold to let things hang in the air like this. It was very out of character. Not even Frieza would do this. It would have been better in their minds if Cold had just come there right now and just blew up the planet, just save them from all this tension. But no, they were left in limbo. and that is the worst thing that can happen to a Saiyan, not knowing their fate. One silver lining though from all of this is that it did allow Bardock to heal up properly and step out of the pod feeling stronger than ever before in his life. When he exited the chamber, one of the attendants read Bardock's power level on a remaining scouter and had found out that it had exceeded 30,000. It had grown 3 times from one battle. However, just as soon as the power had been mentioned from his lips, Bardock rushed the minion and destroyed the scouter. "Are you mad? Scouters have microphones, you idiot! We could be spied on, more than ever!" The minion, amazed by the speed of Bardock, then replayed what he had said and nodded, apologizing for the mistake. Nevertheless though, Bardock did like the sound of having a power level of 30,000. He was now stronger than Dodoria and Zarbon ever were. Well, I mean, okay, Bardock didn't really know about the monster form of Zarbon, but, you know, I mean, Bardock wasn't even trying right now. With the scouters firmly locked away for the time being, the Saiyans were stunned with the gains that Bardock had made in such a short space of time. And sure, their innate Saiyan or Zenkai power or what have you was potent, but never before had any of them had gotten so powerful right there and then in one go. They were amazed. When asked, Bardock described this new golden power as something incredible. "I felt it coursing through me. When I thought my friend had been lost, rage consumed me, and in that moment, it all became clear, and something awoke within me. Is this all that it takes to become a legend? Somehow, this just feels too easy." There were then mutterings amongst the crowd, not necessarily good mutterings. Was Bardock suggesting that this is the thing that others could learn too? Some even thought that Bardock was maybe mocking the tradition of the legendary Super Saiyan, felt that he was cheapening this myth that he was blessed with. This power, was he trifling with it? Bardock had had enough. "I don't care about a legend when its very existence is on the line. As far as I'm concerned, it is our only lifeline, which has saved us from Frieza." However, before he could say any more, the alert sirens went off. There were many ships now heading their way, all kinds of vessels, but none of them, and I repeat, none of them, were official Frieza Force craft. Vultures, thinking they can pick us off for their dear leader? Alright, let's be like those vultures and tear them apart. When the fleets of multiple ships from multiple civilizations, thinking of perhaps trying to gain quick favor with King Cold, having taken out Saiyans, landed, they were met with hundreds of battle-hungry Saiyans, led by Bardock. He hadn't quite mastered the Super Saiyan transformation yet, but right now, he felt that he was strong enough to actually not need it at the moment. He could tell, just from looking at this ragtag bunch of troops, that they were chancers. They stood no chance of getting off this world in one piece. Ideally in many small pieces, or better yet, none at all. The battle for Vegeta began and was ended within minutes. Only a few Saiyans were killed, and that was mainly down to cheap shots and kamikaze tactics. Bardock let one ship flee the scene to send a message to all chancers out there thinking of making a quick buck that if they dare come and mess with Saiyans, they would be in for a rude awakening. Feeling confident with their victory, the group felt like they could let their hair down and relax for the first time since the battle with Frieza. But Bardock just simply couldn't do that. That night, Guinea and Bardock spent time together. The first time the legend got any alone time, and the first time Guinea had the courage to go anywhere near him since he became a Super Saiyan. She could not believe that the father of her 2 boys was the legendary Super Saiyan. She told him this, but that didn't go down too well. "It's just a name in the end. I don't feel special. I thought I was when I first got it, but now..." He trailed off his thought. But Guinea really didn't care. She simply cuddled up to him and rested her head on his arm. "You're a legend to me, Bardock. You always have been." That made Bardock stop for a moment. Normally, he didn't care for her sentimental trash, but in the here and now, after all that had happened, it was appreciated. That night they shared a bed, and they both felt better for it. The next morning, feeling a little more composed, Bardock decided the time was right to start training himself to power up into the Super Saiyan form more reliably. He took himself off into the wastelands with his squad to try and figure out a very efficient way to do so, unearth the mysteries of Super Saiyan. armed only with one scouter between them in case of emergencies or sudden invasions. Anything else? Radio silence all the time. For days, the 5 of them toiled in the hot sun and unforgiving harshness of the land around them. Exhausted and utterly spent, Bardock had managed to understand how the power-up worked and could now more regularly activate it, but his crew couldn't. No matter how hard they tried, it was impossible for them. They either weren't strong enough to have it, were they not special enough, nor did they really have enough of a catalyst in which to force it. Bardock felt now immense pressure. He was the only one who could stop King Cold right now from totally annihilating the planet, and what hurt more was that his friends couldn't share in the glory. Toma, though, wasn't all that upset about it. "It's okay, Bardock. We shall train as much as we can and help you no matter what. Super Saiyan or not, we'll be strong for you." The other 3 echoed his words. Bardock then heard a crackle on the radio of the scouter, and one word could be heard on the other end. "Vegeta!" What? Vegeta? Vegeta had been killed, right? What did they mean? Without another word, the squadron rushed back to base. When they got back, the news began to sink in. Prince Vegeta was still alive and was being held prisoner on Cold Planet 1. The message had been relayed by his attendant Nappa. With a firm tone, the Saiyan was trying to remain brave. He had told the other Saiyans to surrender without question if they wished to not be destroyed. If they surrendered, they could live, but be exiled to their own planet for the rest of time. They would be guarded by Cold Force troops and special technological safeguards that would take down any vessels or persons trying to leave the planet.
"Think of this as an act of mercy on my part,"
said King Cold at the end of the transmission.
"I deny you your desire for conquest, but I also grant you life. Aren't I a benevolent ruler?"
No, he wasn't. He was denying Saiyans their base impulses and instincts. It was pure torture for them. Bardock got on the radio and demanded to speak to Cold.
"You don't get to demand anything from me, Saiyan. You issued that privilege when you eviscerated my son."
"Don't you get all high and mighty with me! One chance, Cold. I will face you. Alone. You can get to battle with the Saiyan that killed your boy." King Cold quietly hissed under his breath. This was a powerful bargaining chip. Enticing even. Should he pursue it? Why not? It sounded fun.
"Very well. What was your name, monkey? Not that it matters in the grand scheme of things, really, but it's a curiosity."
"Bardock. My name is Bardock."
"Well, Bardock. I shall be arriving in your planet's vicinity in 36 hours. Use that time wisely to kiss your home goodbye. I fear that our meeting will be as short and as pointless as the one I had with your king. Shame. Ta-ta."
The radio crackled into silence. The rest of the Saiyans turned to Bardock as if he were insane. "Do you seriously think that your power is enough to stop Cold? Cold? I heard he was even stronger than Frieza was! Bardock, you're inviting him here like it were a picnic!" But Bardock ignored those clucks of despair, and instead decided to use this time preciously. He called the squadron and requested them to train like they had never trained before. They had only just recovered from the last time too. He also recommended that other Saiyans train as well. Get as strong as they can for the potential ambush from Cold forces as he talked with the king. When the king put down the receiver, he turned to the captured prince.
"I have to hand it to you, Prince. Your low-class riffraff are certainly very sure of themselves. But how does it feel to not be the legend that your father thought you would be? Turns out you're nothing but a mewling whelp whose life is in my hands. What do you say? Do you wish to come and see the sun set on your world for the final time, boy?"
Prince Vegeta was terrified. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. So what do you folks think? Do you feel that the conclusion is going to be compelling enough? Will anyone other than Bardock wield the power of Super Saiyan to help? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!